This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Fourth Draft. I'm Erin Trafford. Today I'm going to refer to myself as your story guide. Your story strategist, your media strategist. I'm also the CEO at Story Studio Network. You may have noticed the sounder off the top and the tail of all of our podcasts. And I am here today to let you know that if I haven't already, I am very close to launching the brand new version of erintrafford.com, which is kind of like a sister to Story Studio Network. It's where I do more of my consulting work. It's where I go deeper on a lot of this story strategy. And there's a reason why I have effectively relaunched that part of my business. And it's because of all of the work that I've been doing with Story Studio Network since 2021. We're now in 2025. So it's been 4 years. And listen, in the world of new media and startups, that's ages. That might as well be like a decade or two. I have seen a lot of challenges with all of our clients. Like, it doesn't matter what size, whether they're a solopreneur, whether they're a nonprofit, whether they're a giant, large commercial organization, or even if they are one of our agency partners who specializes in, stakeholder engagement communications and government relations communications and those kinds of things. I have noticed a trend, and I like to gather just enough evidence to, verify the trend, and then I act. So last summer, 2024, I really started leaning into, am I going to relaunch my consulting business? Because these clients that we're working with at Story Studio Network, wonderful clients, we're having amazing results. We create incredible branded podcasts. And if you know me, you know that that's true. But one of the crunch points was that we'd often get into working with these clients and realize that they had incredible stories and incredible potential to market, but there was some elements of their foundation that I'm not going to say were shaky. They were not shaky. They knew who they were. They know who they are. When clients come to us, they're very sure of their mission and their place in the world, but they were not optimizing it. There were so many places where I could look and say, that's a leaky bucket. You could refine that strategy with some very particular tweaks and really make it, as I say, a speedway to the next level. And it was frustrating me, to be honest, because Story Studio Network is not set up to allow for that kind of work. Story Studio Network is not set up to fundamentally look at the story structure, the leadership structure. And I don't mean like the architecture of the business. I mean, how is the leadership communicating from a story-based level? It's just not set up that way, right? Like, we built Story Studio Network to be a well-oiled, branded podcast production machine for sector level organizations and high performing solopreneurs. That's what we did. So all of this led to me really questioning, is it time for me to relaunch my consulting business? And so, I hummed and I hawed and I thought, am I going to have time to do this? Am I going to have space to do this? And often when I find that I'm facing that kind of resistance, my gut response is to then retreat back and look at what I already have. Am I already doing this work? Do I just need to reframe the way I'm looking at it? And the reality is, I went back through the guts of my business over the last 10 years. I went through all the programs that I've launched. I went through all of the accelerator programs I've run entrepreneurs through. I went through all the courses that I had built, through COVID. I launched 3 different story-based and content strategy courses. And I kind of collated it all and I thought, no, you know what? I have this huge body of work. And frameworks that are more or less proprietary to me, that are based on my time in the newsroom, what I know from having an advanced degree in journalism, and being in the field, but also my work with brands and then my work with entrepreneurs. I have this huge body of knowledge. So I went deep on that. And obviously it needed to be adapted because I do work with different kinds of clients now. And that's part of the secret sauce is if you want to work with someone different, you need to tell a different story. So I spent about 6 months peeling it apart and putting it back together in a way that I feel makes sense. And here we are today, where I am running Story Studio Network, and I am ostensibly relaunching Erin Trafford Story and Strategy for a brand new type of client engagement. And it feels really good. It feels like this is where I always was supposed to be. And so with this comes some really exciting things. And if you're a Fourth Draft listener, you are getting probably first dibs on this. What I decided to do, and if you have known me for any degree of time, you know that part of what I was able to do with my former business is grow it using a lot of what marketers would call funnel strategy and offer strategy. And I'm really great at that. And I can walk right into a room. And if you're, running a course program or a mastermind program, or you're a consultant or whatever, I can look at that and say, okay, like here's a really great offer stack that's going to increase your lifetime value of your client. And that's kind of how I built my old business. And so part of my brain wanted me to build that business again, which would mean kind of hiving off all of my work and putting it into these little bundles and selling them at various prices and this and that. And I thought, that kind of bores me now. I like that for some people, but not for me anymore. So I actually asked myself, what would make this really easy? And the reality is giving it away makes it easy. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I bet you didn't think I was going to say that, but that's what I'm going to do. I am still, last episode I mentioned that I'm working on this new tool to really talk about the value of your content. That's going to be a really long play. So I've had some conversations with some folks in tech. I've had some conversations with some folks who admittedly are smarter than I am. And they didn't say pump the brakes on that, but they were like, you might be onto something here. So take your time. I thought I was going to be able to launch that this spring. No, that's not going to happen. I'm going to focus on the launch of the consulting business instead. So what I'm giving away for free. Tuesdays is when I'm going to aim to do it. And I'm effectively going into my vault, which is like hundreds and hundreds of playbooks. And I'm going to put them all into my newsletter. So if you're a subscriber to my newsletter, Erin Trafford Story and Strategy, my goal is to fill you up weekly with really quick wins that are tried, tested, and true. And not only what I think about things. So yes, I'm going to give you what I think about things, but literal examples of how you can go in every week and refine your story strategy and how you're showing up so that it works better for you. So every week is going to be, I'm not going to say a lesson, but it's going to be an insight. And I'm not holding back. I'm like giving you the whole playbook. I'm like, here's how it works. Here's why it works. Here's how to diagnose if you've got this particular problem. Here's how this looks in practice. And here are a couple key examples of things or questions perhaps that you should ask in order to prompt yourself to start to unpack this for you. Like literally that's what I'm doing. And as I'm sitting there writing these, I've got a few already written that will start dropping in April. I'm considering calling it, kind of the executive storytelling playbook or something of that sort. Started to feel so good. Like, I just want to give this to you. You need this in your life, And part of the ethos of the fourth draft, like the reason I called it the fourth draft is because I know a lot of folks who listen to me and follow me are still stuck on their first draft. And I've been around the block more than once. In fact, more than 4 times. I just like the sound of the fourth draft. So learn from me. Take from me what you need. I'm just going to give it to you. Because I have probably at this point made every freaking mistake in the book, so much so that I now have hundreds of playbooks, tactics, strategies, systems, tools, whatever you want to call it, that you can use for you. So I'm going to launch the newsletter with one of the most important lessons that you can have in storytelling. If you are a leader, if you are a solopreneur, if you are a consultant, if you are anything of that sort, if you have a small team, if you're scrappy, you know what? Even if you're the head of freaking Coca-Cola, you can use this, right? This is important for everybody. And it is this concept of your signature story. And I developed this over time because what I recognized is that I don't have any firm number on this. I'm just going to use hyperbole here, but like 90% of people who say that they're really great storytellers are actually just good talkers. They're just good talkers. And what do I mean by that? Is that usually when I sit there and I listen, I'm like, this isn't actually a story. This is just an assembly of anecdotes that are being dropped into context. It doesn't feel like a story. It feels like you have a lot of experience. It feels like you got a lot to say, but there's no overarching story foundation. So I'm opening up the playbook on that signature story in the first newsletter. I'm going to give you a little bit of a high level. So a signature story, here's the definition, is a strategic, repeatable, and emotionally resonant narrative that defines your core messages, your values, and the transformation that you bring. It has to be all of those three things: strategic, repeatable, and emotionally resonant. And this is really important too. It's not just any story, and it 100% is not just your origin story. Like, well, I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto. It's not that. It's not that. It's the story that anchors your brand leadership, your business, in a way that builds trust and influence strategically. And it has to have these three components, right? So the definition, the characteristics are it's strategic, repeatable, and emotionally resonant. I feel like my computer just went off, and you might have heard that. I'm sorry. Again, I've said this before. I'm recording this myself at like 5 a.m. Now, here are the components of your signature story. You got to think of it in terms of chunks, okay? It needs to have a defining moment or a transformation. And again, this is not your whole life story. That defining moment in the story is a pivotal moment that shifted your perspective and or the trajectory of your thought patterns. Why do we do this? Because this creates a reflection moment for the audience. Because instantly what they feel is, whoa, if that person changed their mind, I can now change my mind. And when somebody has that moment, what has happened is their mind is now open to new ideas. This is how sales happen, folks. This is how. It doesn't start with, I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto. I actually grew up in downtown Toronto. I don't know why I say suburbs. I'm like a little ashamed that I grew up downtown Toronto. That's weird. But this is a moment that you tease out that shifted your perspective or your trajectory. That's what I want you to start with. An example of what that looks like in practice, like I'm going to give you a little bit of Mad Libs here, is I used to believe X, but after this experience, I realized Y. And I mean like the letter Y. And that's why I do what I do today. Tell me that story. Don't tell me who's your father. Tell me that story, okay? So that's the first component of your signature story. The second part is then what I need you to do is connect that to your work, your leadership, or your purpose. So your signature story is not just personal. It really needs to tie into your why you are leading the way you lead and how you create impact. So the next part of that looks like this. That experience taught me that core belief, and now I help you, as in the audience, as in define your ideal listener, achieve such and such a transformation. And I say listener not because you're doing this on a podcast or because you are doing this on radio or whatever. I say listener because when you speak your signature story and you do it in a way that is strategic, repeatable, and emotionally resonant, the right people will listen. They will literally become listeners. Okay? That's why I use that term. So the last piece is about that emotional resonance. So you've got, a pivotal moment that changed your mind. Now you're connecting that moment to the work that you do, and your listener is wide open. They are in a receptive mode now because they see that you have done something that they really emotionally desire to do. You've changed your mind and created results. Now, the emotional resonance part is the clincher. And this is what a lot of folks forget, right? You see this on LinkedIn all the time. I'm a marketer and I love to help blah, 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 do this. Great. That's the first two components. But the third part is that you need to make that listener, that audience member, your ideal client, then see themselves in that story. Tie it all up with a bow, where then you say something that allows them to really know that not only can they see themselves in you, but that you see them. The answer to that sounds like this. Maybe you have felt the same way. You're amazing at what you do, but no one understands you. This is exactly why I help leaders like you to XYZ. It's so simple. It is so simple. And yet, so few people actually do this well. And when it's done well, it is incredibly effective. Go look at Brene Brown. Go look at Mel Robbins. Go look at Elizabeth Gilbert. They all use this way of telling stories. All of them do. Okay. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm breaking down in the newsletter. Like there's way more that's going into the signature story newsletter than what I just shared with you. But I would encourage you to head over to my website, erintrafford.com, or just drop into the show notes and sign up for the newsletter, because every Tuesday you're going to get this. And then my goal is still to have the fourth draft kind of support. So I may not be dropping the fourth draft weekly. I might drop it in batches. I'm not quite sure yet. This is not going away. I just haven't quite nailed the cadence of how this is going to integrate with the new work that I do. But I'm so lit up about this. And I really do think that this is also going to enhance the work that I'm doing on the media side. This is going to enhance the work that I'm doing with clients at Story Studio Network. And here's the reality. Here's what I know is that when I'm lit up about something, when I feel truly, truly like I can just show up and make an incredible impact by helping you see things slightly differently, I know great things happen. Great things happen for me. Great things happen for my clients. Great things happen just tangentially as a result. So I'm going to lean into this energy. I'm going to lean into it because this is the secret sauce that I didn't do it on purpose, but accidentally I was kind of holding back on for a really long time. I thought, oh, no. These are my secrets. These are my secrets. I'm not going to give them away. I'm going to give them away. I want you to have these secrets. And I want you to share these secrets because they're not actually secrets. They're actually keys that unlock a lot of impact, a lot of growth. And if I can get a little wishy-washy, they unlock a lot of love. When you tell stories like that, you will feel the room change. People will rise to support you. And that feels good. This is supposed to feel good. So with that, I hope you're just as excited as I am. The tool I talked about in the last episode, it's still percolating. I know myself well enough to know that sometimes I put an idea out there and then I let it kind of plinko chip around in my brain. Anyway, if you have an idea on that, reach out. I am open. I am receptive. And I hope you're excited about your signature story now. And the newsletter. And all the things. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me, all those coordinates, in the show notes. You totally know this by now. And I apologize if you're listening to this super, super early and you head to erintrafford.com and it's still the old version. In which case, just send me an email. team@erintrafford.com. Because we're aiming to have the new site launched early April. So if you're listening to this before then, basically what's there is not what's going to be there. That's just me being transparent. I have a small team, and this is a special project that I'm kind of doing on my own. All right, folks. I'm so happy to have brought you in on this. Thanks for listening. Have an excellent week. Until next time.